Namaste, Kamlesh Kapur speaking. This is lesson 19, and we are continuing the journey of India's past. Started from way back, several millennia back. Now we are almost catching up to uh, common era and a little past that. So today's um, topic is influx and invasions. Now, invasions, internecine also. One kingdom is fighting with the other, but influx and invasions, when we are putting together, then it is invaders across this Indus River or across even Gandhara and Parthia. So that means how those people adjusted in the culture and socio-economic setup. So this will be the highlight. And before I start, I need to emphasize one more thing. Actually, I tell everything. The thrust of these lessons is not political upheavals or lack of unity or who was the king and what was his life like. It is how the rulers changed and how it affected the common people. So history is the history of common people as affected by surrounding ecological, political, and other conditions. So the introduction of new languages, derivatives, and dialects, and all of these things, the development of ideas. Most importantly, the development of ideas, in spite of all these things that are going on, and the heritage that India has left. So, this is the thrust of all these lessons. I just want to remind that if anybody is looking for the life story of the kings, I'm not going to mention that. Um, there are other books on them. And the second thing is that how India received the invaders and India's own cultural environment, which could accommodate those who came from outside. So Kushans were one of those tribes, a very large tribe coming from Mongolia. It is said that they were Buddhist. That means actually, in an earlier lesson, I mentioned that Hindu Dharma traditions and cultural expressions of that, they were all around Pan Asia, Central Asia, Northern Asia, East, West. So some groups or mentioning who they were, like we are Buddhist, or from their construction styles, it was apparent. But most of the people did not even mention. But it is assumed that since in that area, entire area, around that time, there was no other Dharma tradition per se with a name or there was no culture that was named as such, uh, aligning or belonging to a certain region. So I use the word Pan-Asian. So in other words, Mongolia, where they came from, that was a Buddhist country. So it is part of the continuation, the migration. So Kushan kings, the chief Kujula, came and invaded. Every time the border kingdoms are in a chaotic condition, lack of unity, and the base at the central base is weak, these things will continue happening. They have been happening, and they are happening in the Kushan period as well. So they came and adopted Indian culture. They patronized all Dharma traditions, and they were contemporaneous with the Satavahanas, and which was a major power emerging in the south, occupying a very vast territory. And I'm going to highlight that too. So this is actually the three major powers. Nagas is a very, very ancient dynasty tracing its origins from Mahabharata onwards. So Satavahanas in the south and just northwest Nagas, and then the Kushans enter. So they provided 2 centuries of rule, continuity, stability, prosperity. So when all these things are there, the arts flourish, trade flourish, and peace and prosperity, and they have advantage and they have disadvantage as well. The disadvantage is that people become complacent. People are doing their jobs. The kings are so well off or happy, um, and there is no danger to them or challenge to them, actually, challenge to them from any ruthless enemy. Then they become complacent. And that is how, the oscillating empires and kingdoms worked in India and everywhere else as well in later history of the world. So, despite the threats from other kingdoms, their rule lasted 150 years, even a little more than that. But they were decadent. So, arts and literature flourished. We'll detail it. In the northwest was the Panchayat area. Now, this is not anymore Saptasindhuva because Saraswati River had already dried, and instead there is a little bit of expanding desert. It was small in the beginning, and in the next 1,000 years, it became a little larger, expanding. So, Panchayat area is Punjab. Gandhar School of Art flourished, and Eastern magnificent temples were made, sculptures were made, and they reflected all different traditions. And the word devas was used very commonly. So, which means primarily most of them, these youths were in currency in Pan Asian cultures. So, therefore, this word was easy for them to, include in their titles and in their devotional styles or even in their architecture. So there was manifestation of Vishnu and Buddha and his disciples. All of these were part of the what they followed, what they allowed the subjects to follow. So inhabitants of the regions of China and Central Asia beyond the Indian borders, they were Mongolian, defeated Bactria and Parthia. Bacteria is what we call the outskirts of modern day Afghanistan. And this was just a city. But as I'll show that it was not as big as if it was an empire. Parthia was, however, there were 3, 4 parts of modern day Iran. It was called Persia also, uh, because Parsis and Persas and Parthas, they all went in there to this area, and they were defeated by the Sudha, by Sudha. So alternately, the words for that area they have used in different Google Maps I was looking at. They use the word Parthians, they use the Bactrians, they Skydians. Now, actually, it was Partha, it was Balakh, it was Sakas. So these Skydians and Bactrians, business was given, the names are given by the British. So they conquered the king of Kabul, and Indian borderland was under their control. He became the first king and known as Kadphises, and his son conquered northwest of India. And this way they expanded on and on. And the gap they filled was because of the weakness of Shungas and Kanwas and Saka, Vikramadi Saka. So all these factors combined together and facilitated that for them to expand. So Kanishka was the most famous of the kings of Kushan. Everybody probably is familiar with the name because one of the airplane was named after Kanishka, and that was hijacked and terrorized, destroyed. So the Indian culture recognizes the contributions and the greatness of Kanishka. But the British historians, if you go through the globally taught books, Kanishka is very minimally mentioned. And I'll give you the reason for that. Why this kind of different treatment. When Ashoka became great and Kanishka did not, even though the dynasty contributed a lot. So his empire consisted what is the modern day Afghanistan. At that time it was split in Arat and Valikas and Gandhar and Gandhar. Kashmir was added by them to their kingdom. Even though Kashmir was always a very flourishing kingdom, contributing vastly to the expansion and on the level of contribution of Kashmir are unparalleled, both in the field of philosophy and Hindu culture. So Punjab, Bactrian kingdoms, Nepal, Ganga Valley, Tashkent, and Turkestan. So Tashkent and Turkestan is just above the Himalaya mountains. He had two capitals because it was a vast empire. So he had Mathura in the west, in the east, and Peshawar in the. So Peshawar is a place where many trade routes meet. So even from the earlier days, the horses were bought by the Gangatic Valley people from Bharat, and camels were brought from northwest of Asia. And the exchange is not just the horses and camels, but every other thing was exchanged. So many trade routes merged in, passed through Peshawar. So it was kind of integrated through trade. So traders are exchanging things, and seals are made, seals are broken, and that conveys a kind of continuity of good administration with some gaps and all that. And that also gives us the different kind of evidence what was going on at that time. So several artifacts and coins they are found in Nepal, which were in museums now, and they are deciphered also to some extent. But the ones recently which were found in Haryana, that has not yet been completely figured out. And they have not yet been able to get the complete evidence or complete picture. So during the reign of Vishka, Kanishka's grandson, Mathura became the center of Kushan Empire. So many monuments were erected during that reign. The last great was Vasudeva, and power was dwindling, and the Guptas from the Ganga Valley, they came, and the Nagas again started challenging their rule. And then Satavahanas were trying to maintain, but they were also the target for other expanding kingdoms. So every 200 years or so, the power base changes in this direction or that direction, depending on various alliances of Janpadas and Mahajanpadas, the allies from the tribals. So that kind of undercurrents of the civilizational growth was continuing all the time in India. So the last great king, as I said, and by the time the Guptas came, Satavahana were also ending, declining, and Kushans too. Now this is the map. It's a very hazy map, and I try to figure out with the help of a magnifying glass, and I could see this. This is Pamir, right? And there is right here is Khotan, and then this is the mountains. Now this is Bactria, and somewhere here is Arat and Sindh, and this is Gandhar. So since Arat and other places, they are just basalt or small janpadas. They're not mentioned in the map, but in any case, it gives the idea that they came from there, Mongolia, and they conquered. So this is Himalaya, and they were up to here. And this is Mathura. So the kingdom was up to right here. And this area was Sakas and Nagas. This area, from the Indus Valley Delta to Narmada, river boundaries. And from here started the Satavahanas, and they were quite a big empire. This is the general map of that area. So why I am showing this map? Because I'll show you the current map constructed in the some Western historian, and I'm going to show that also. That where is the gap in our understanding of our history and their lens of viewing things. And that is the main purpose that I started doing this work of writing Indian history from scratch, not from where they left or improving them, because you cannot improve total falsehood unless you write the true story. So I'll show you where the distortions are deliberately introduced today and will be followed by the Indians. That is the sad part of it. So here we go. Neighboring kingdoms. I already explained with the help of the map. Several kingdoms are there. They constituted Kanishka's empire. When the Kushans were strong, they constituted the empire. Around this period, many tribal republics also existed. Western ranges of Arabia, I showed you, and Indus Valley. Fairly good account you can get from a literary text, Hindu and Buddhist, in numismatic evidence, coins, inscriptions, seals, arts, and artifacts. And this is another map showing Satavahanas, and this is more clearly, this is a gem of Vikramaditya. And these are all the others, Sakas and Bharatan. And this is Satvan. And these are shown as Janpadas, but they were actually Vasal kingdoms. They were under the power of Kanishka. And this is Kalanga. And look at this, Magad and Patliputra. This is just a city and a very small kingdom. So not even to be counted as their contemporary kingdoms, you know. So this is all around here. So we are already talking about what is modern day Tashkent, Yarkand, and Khotan, and many places, Afghanistan, of course, and parts of Parthia, Iran. These maps tell a better story than we can do in the words. Now this is Asia 200. And, they have brought in this Chinese king. And look at the map and look at the distortions. Parthian kingdom and Greco, Bactrian kingdom. What Greco? Where is their language? Is that language spoken in this area? Never. And do they have any art structure? No. And the claim that Gandhar art school was actually Greek, copied from Greece. So, and this is Seleucus. Okay, he is contained here. He was up to here. After Alexander, they conquered this area, but then they retreated and nothing remained of them. So, and this is China. Han Dynasty, Silk Roads. Look at this. And Thai tribes in this. And look at the way India is shown. That's it. All this area is hogged by kingdoms nobody heard of, and there's no evidence of. So I took this map just to show the distortions in history which are being introduced. One distortion is that Maurya Empire was here, whereas Gandhar and Takshila was the most important places here. That is one great distortion. So when Alexander came, this is where he entered. Okay. So then this Parthian was part of Iran, and Seleucus Empire by the time of Kushans was actually Parthian Empire of the fair. And then there were other more kingdoms. So, and proto-Tibetan. This proto-business is the that word proto. You see that when they were talking about the Indo-Iranian languages, Indo-European languages, and then they added that somebody questioned Indo-European languages, if there are similarity in words, there must be some script or language from which they emerged, because these are two. You see, one means continuously one. Two means that at some point there was something else, and then there are two branches. When this question came, they invented the word Proto-Indo-European language. So this proto means we know nothing about it, and something was there before that. From there, this emerged. Proto, as I understand, is this word. Anywhere you think find the word proto before any name, that means um, it is a mythical or speculative or pure lie, falsehood. So we don't know what is proto. And Tibetans, of course, were there at that time, but they were part of the Indian subcontinent and Indian empires. Nepal was there too. And here Nepal is hardly shown, as part of India. With this, this part is something else. So what I'm saying is that all of these kingdoms, the names, they are all mythical. Actually, all the way up to here was Indian culture. Because China's own historians, they mention that their earliest recorded history, as known, to them, started in 2700 before the Common Era. So obviously, at the time of Mahabharata and all those times, these things did not exist. Tibet was there, and Sham was there, Malaya was there, and different names were there. But they were all under Pan-Asian culture. And this thing didn't exist. And this thing was part of the Iran in three different branches. They all occupied this area. And, and this thing is nobody knows what. Because I did not find any evidence in books on world cultures and world history. So this is just for comparison that how we are teaching everything so wrong with the visual this thing. And some of the map, this is a Google map, and some of the maps are taken in such an angle, from such an angle that India just looks like a tiny, like this. This is the wider part and this is the south part. And like, if you go like this. So part of the lessons is to point out the distortions and claim with proof and evidence the real geographical arena of Indian culture and the impact of Indian civilization. So part of the reason of that to remove the distortions and the lies and speculation and replace it with as much as possible evidence-based and historical evidence. Okay. So that map was total mythical, speculative, had no basis, and should be erased from the mind. I just showed the reason why it is necessary for us to claim. In order to claim, we have to claim the geography of India, Indian subcontinent. That was the culture and that was the civilization that was flourishing in that. So these bifurcation and kingdoms and Greco and this and that, total nonsense. Greek literature does not mention, in their literature it is not mentioned that India had some kind of. So Ganesh was one of the devas, But they tolerated all three traditions, Buddhists, Jains. The middle of his reign, it is said that he accepted Buddhism as his primary belief system. And that is also the impact of Ashok Ghosha, who was a scholar at that time. And this is the major development that happened, that together with this and the Mahayana form of Buddhism started, where they said that Buddha was divine incarnation, like Sri Krishna and Ram. And now he is given a divine incarnation among the 10 incarnations of Vishnu. So up to Sri Krishna, it was 8 incarnations of Vishnu, and then there was Balram. So they knocked down Balram and added Buddha. I have no objection to any of those things. This was more of an evolutionary process of a child's growth as well as human beings as a species, their growth. So this is evolutionary kind of pillar that the 10 avatars show. So to me, whether he is divine entity or Sri Krishna, or from my perspective, logically, anyone who comes to the earth is born and destined to die. He is mortal. And incarnation is, we are also incarnation of something. So it is irrelevant as far as I am concerned. And I think that makes sense also. And it also, all kind of schisms between Mahayana and Bodhyana, and you see Shaivites and non-Shaivites. All of these friction point should be not highlighted, should not be highlighted. Instead, we should focus on the core principles of Sanatana Dharma, from which everything emerged, all the pathways. And in different languages, in Prakrit, in Pali, in different scripts, the literature mentions all these things. And the basic message of all the three Dharma traditions is the same, exact same. So they had council of Buddhist thinkers, composed some Pataka sutras, and then stupas were built, some were renovated, and bihars were made, monasteries for mendicants. And literary sources up to 300 BC do not mention people going to temples. That's another something. So in the time of Ramayana, Sita went to, it's not Gauri temple, Girija Shrine. It was a shrine. You see, there must be some Pratima and not a temple. And same way, temple going, even today, is not essential part of Hindu culture. Especially this Sunday temple business is totally irrelevant and out of the compass of Sanatana Dharma. So, however, the literature of Kushan period, both Buddhist and the Hindu temples are mentioned. And they actively constructed in Nepal, in Kashmir, and other places. Some were in the style of Gandhar school of art, and the other was Mathura. So devotional practices now. Once you go to the temple, there is a devotional and reverential kind of chanting. So it was both vipassana, focusing inward and concentrating, and upasana, looking at the various followers of Buddha and Devas. So both uh, focusing on object and focusing on the insight. So both practices started at that time and combined actually. And what I mean, they existed before, but what I mean is that they were simultaneously combined. So in Hindu temples, they do the worship as well as offer prayer, reverence, and they also do the meditations. Okay. So India is known for freedom of thought, and that makes us, in a sense, so receptive, and so casual that anybody would bring a kind of a legend or a mythical, something, they will accept it as and incorporate it. That is another weakness that we have to address. Freedom of thought does not mean that you start chanting all religions are the same. Nonsense. First of all, Hindu is not a religion. It's not man-made. There is no founder, and there is no name for the founder. If you don't know something, you cannot name it, or you can put infinite number of names. These kind of things, they have to be driven home. That what is changeable by human records of history and what remains in the realm of cosmic law. And you respect both the legal system of the prevailing times, but accept the philosophy, deeper philosophy as well, and not create confrontational kind of bifurcations, but assimilation and diversity. That everything is inclusive. Sanatan means eternal, and that is inclusive. Nothing is outside. So, the simulation of Kushans, even though they were from different social religious group, but then culturally they were, and Kadphises, they had this Sanskrit name as a title, Satya Dharma Sthityasya. So it means supporter of true dharma. His son chose to emboss different uh, Indian Shiva and Bull, Nandi on the seeds and coins. Kanishka used all manifestations of divinity on the coins and art forms. So this also reflects that what we used to say, truth is one, we now say also. Sages see it differently, you see. Subsequent rulers, same practice. So last ruler, Shiva's pictures on his coins. So peaceful coexistence of diverse faith traditions and social practices of the people. This became fundamental thing. For this, why he is not considered a great dynasty and one of the greatest emperor of India. Why not? Because he combined the Hindu devas and Hindu devotional aspects and Hindu philosophy and Buddhist together and assimilated the whole thing. Whereas Ashoka mythically is promoted as the follower of Buddhist and he denied Hinduism. That's the reason one is great in the eyes of the Western historians and the other is not great. Okay. So half of the Kushan Empire was in Central Asia. So trade built economic ties for a long time, even previous to them, several millennia back. So there are several legends that the Central Asian kingdoms and chiefs, they used to donate enough money for the poor people, for the to meet their needs and charitable activities. So this picture I already showed in Kabul Museum, the Sun Temple. This is another objection to the Western historian. Why Kanishka should not be great? Because he constructed Sun Temple. Even though Sun in entire Africa and Asia, parts of Europe also, Sun was worshipped all the time. And the word R, the alphabet R, is in every name that we give to the sun. Mitra, Surya, Mitra, Savitri. You see, Ra in Egypt is sun. So Ra. So therefore, saying that he was the first one to worship sun, we have Gayatri Mantra to prove. And if he did really, and of course he did, he constructed this in his own image of the dress style, because they were coming from just below Tundra. So, and that is his dharma. So this I already explained in an earlier image is house in sanctuary. And this piece is from the Kushan era. This type of artwork shows diffusion of Kushan and other earlier, and I'm going to show Iranian influence and all that. Because here, the sculpted figure has fully clothed, has clothes on, and layers of them. Layers of not just ornaments and bare body, but fully. And several others I'll show, which show even how they were sewn together, the garment. So the type of artwork in different. Okay, colonial historian Greeks started the Gandhara style of art. This is pure nonsense and should be dismissed by anybody, let alone Indians. So now this is another picture. Now these are pictures and scenes. See the pleats, the belt, and the sword with a sheath around it. Somebody cut off the head. There was a lot of vandalism going on at that time. Subsequently, not at that time, subsequently, when the Arab invaders came, first thing they did was if you remove the head, the person is gone. So this is how they were erasing the existence of these emperors. And this is a soldier which is wearing, this thing is like a dhoti in a different style, but this tunic is the Gandhara art. And this headless again. The details of the tunic, that means it is stitched, it's not unstitched cloth wrapped around. And the leggings, shoes, straps, entire gear is fusion of Mathura and Gandhara style. And of course, what they brought, they could not survive without fully clothes hugging fully the body. So you can see the folds and how they were. This is Kushan art. So fusion of art types. Mathura, tunic and trousers, and the skirt is pleated, overlapped, folds, the belt. These are, they call it Skadian, but actually it is not Skydians. It is Gandhas who impacted by uh, Kanishka or Kushans. So another headless, it shows Greek wrap. Now at that time, when they say that this is Greek, actually it is not Greek, because Greeks and Romans at that time were wearing a loose kind of garment made of muslin imported from India. So that is another evidence from these pictures that it is not Greek style. So during this period, four languages were in common: Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit. Kroshti was not a language per se; it is a script, as hieroglyphics kind of script. So several books were written, patronized by the king, and the court has Ashokosha, Vasumitra, Nagarjuna, Charak, and all these great people. They were composing vast literature. Charaka was a great physician. He wrote Charak Samhita. I think almost everybody knows. This is an extensive treatise, even followed by Ayurvedic physicians today. So Vasumitra, he combined Buddhist doctrines, and Kushans made a major impact on Central Asian metropolis. Although written documents rarely survive, but coins have provided essential evidence, political and cultural history of the region. Political setup. Just in summary, in a few lines, this is the same as Mauryan, Chandragupta, and what Chanakya created. So, see this. So, king was addressed as Rajadiraj. So, Maharaj, Maharajadiraj, and Devputra. These are all Sanskrit words. These titles continued in the ancient times, Rajadiraj and Chakravarti for emperor. So, despite their Asian origin, they quickly learned the local language, assimilated, and they used in their own cultural expressions, whether it is literature or sculpture or architecture. So people prayed in the temples for their king, you see, for the country or for their king. So they would Putra Puja. Okay. We also do even today. Specifically during the Sharath period, we offer prayers to our Pitras, or who are now considered devas. So they Putra Puja. Now, this is another distortion, because the modern books globally taught, they say that Dev Putra Puja in the temples mean divine rights of peace. I mean, the entire history of India is actually distorted, biased, and speculative, and also mapped on the colonial culture or lack of it, tribal culture, feudalism. It is mapped on that. That since the king had divine rights, he was meant to be the king, and whatever he says goes. That is not how it worked in India. India always had grassroots democracy. The very fact that even a district was a janpada and everything was controlled for that area by them, That means that at the grassroots level, people had freedom and they were not looking at the king every time for justice or divine justice, or the case goes to the king. No. The statue of a king would be found near a shrine. Does this mean they believe? They don't. People had administration. Exactly like warriors, they had army, police, judiciary, Dandanayaka. Who is Dandanayaka? Many people think he is the chief judge, chief justice, but actually Dandanayaka is the executioner. Execution doesn't mean killer. It means the one who gives the punishments or makes sure that the punishment is given. So village known, Gramika, another Sanskrit word, Gramaswami, and justice is dispensed local level, panchayat system, revenue collection by administrative units. And so it is kind of a dispersal of power down to the people. So when you have the village controlling its own, following its own regulations under the broad framework and dharma, then it is, in true sense, democracy. And the word politics was not used. Rajniti was totally a different connotation in the usage of Rajdharma. The revenue collection, again, at the different levels. Other than militia, the political and not affected by change of rulers. The king did not recruit everybody to be in the army. That never was for a very long time, till the collapse of Gandhara. It was really for the subjects to accept the change of empire. It has happened before. It will continue to happen. As long as we are maintaining our grassroots democracy, panchayat system, local level independence, janpada, mahajanpada, and we follow the common law. In the eye of nature, there is a natural law, which is common law, dharmashastras, and niti. It doesn't matter who the ruler is. The impact is not felt by the common people. That is the beauty of the Indian civilizational heritage and ethos. So local level democracy in ancient tradition. Okay. All right. Economy. Trade routes right up to Rome. These expansions took place in the Kushan period. So domestic trade at different cities, as it was during the flourishing Vedic times in the northwest. So Rome, up to Rome, inland trade, maritime trade, both flourished. So deep ocean going uh, ships were there, and they were made by non-rusting, um, non-rusting material, resins, antique wood, and no nails, instead wedging the wooden logs. So stable and centralized power of Kushans facilitated flourishing trade. So much trade was, export was going on from India to other countries, and that in return they gave the um, gold to India. So gold came to India from other places as not imported but barter system. So rich merchants were larger section because they are the traders. Small industries were there, mining, alloys continue to be used and developed, goldsmith, blacksmith. Without that, there is no seals and no molds and no nothing. So copper coins means that not only gold and silver were used for as a high value currency, but copper coins were also used. So it's a continuation of the same traditions and same regulations and political setup. Though a scientific study of the coins has yet to be undertaken, but coins do tell a story. They have pictures, they have text in print, which means the name Shiva or Devaputra Rajadhira. And they also show the language because the script is there and customs of those kings. Now, these are seals and coins. You see, these are faded, but if they are, if I enlarge it, they lose the resolution. But the ones which are in the museum, probably they had. So it does show, how the kings were dressed and they had weapons in the hands and like that. And these are other, Trishul is there. So this must be the last king who put Shiva and Nandi on the coins. And this is another Devaputra. This is another. So I just took 4 or 5. Actually, there are numerous seals and coins. And some of them they have written here, which is very hard to decipher, but it says that Devadiraj or Devaputra Rajadiraj, and like that. So Indian influence in Central Asia. It was there before in Hindu and Buddhist art forms, but now it became more pronounced and more like integrated. So it was just one long tapestry without any joints or even crease. The Indian kingdoms in Khatan, intellectual conquest. Now these people were not under, like conquering. They did conquer certain kingdoms and restored more stable empires. But that doesn't mean they went outside and your way or my way and I'll kill you. Otherwise, you accept my under certain condition. My way of thinking. No. So Gandhara art style, Hindu manuscripts, Buddhist patakas, monastery sanctuaries, all were built in different parts of the uh, of Asia and even up to Africa. One of the earliest dynasty of Khotan was named Vijay. It's a very little place on the northeast of Kashmir. So linguistic evidence shows Khotan language is a mixture of Prakrit and Sanskrit with a hieroglyphic script. So during the Kushan period, monasteries were built Central Asia, Yarkand, Kashgar, Tashkent, Western China. Indian culture continued to flourish in Central Asia till the time of Turkish and Arabic. So the next epochal time period will be when the Turkish and Arab invasions began. The things totally changed. The rules of the warfare were changed. And it was not assimilation and acceptance of diversity, it was a certain type of view, narrow view, imposed on others with the help of the sword. And it did not spare anybody from devastation, whether a person is farmer, trader, or anybody for that matter. Everybody was under the sword. But while the Indian kingdoms were in power, Vardhanas and then Homs, they were all integrated. Minimal uh, attack to gain power, position, or, wealth. They, Kushans or any other person who impacted Central Asia were not plunderers, not marauders. They did not destroy, and instead they built the temples and preserved the Vedic heritage. Some of the heritage we have ignored um, in India in the last 75 years. I mean, literally put it in a dilapidated class. The temple I visited in Karnataka, it was like no road, dirt, filth, and totally dilapidated. Nobody cared to maintain it, and on top was written uh, uh, United Nations Heritage Site, and we cannot maintain it. So during the Kushan period, several monasteries, yes. Oral Stein, he said that Kutan, when he tried to understand Kutan language, he could see the comparison or, a similarity between Sanskrit, Prakrit, and uh, Khotan. It was a very short-lived language. So that decline in a ruler's rapid decline. Republican chiefs, they rebel, expand. So Gupta's empire from the east, Nagas from the west, and Shakas raised their head. And just as Ashoka made Buddhism at the royal level as Rajadharma, uh, eventually these Kushans also did the same thing. Rajadharma. Not because probably they did not, they didn't have army or military strength, but probably there was no need for confrontation or ambush or any kind of petty war. If everybody is prosperous and happy and contented, where is the point of a war? So, Naga claims Ganga Valley, and then Gupta's claimed Magad and expanded, and by another 150 years, this was finished. So, this is how the history goes.